Hello and welcome to the conversation. We are back for another great show. We are four men talking about things that men usually think about but rarely ever discuss. Politics, religion, relationships, you name it, we're talking about it. So we're glad you joined us for the conversation. As usual, I'm joined by my three co-hosts, DeMarcus Smith.
We back again. Let's get it.
Jeff Fauntleroy.
Hey, man, I'm the shy guy, man. You know, I don't have too much to say.
And we got Greg Kirkland in the house.
I must have done something right because y'all keep bringing me back. I'm doing all right.
All right, we're going to have a great show for you today. But again, we always like to let you get to know a little bit about us. So my question today is the pandemic. We know this pandemic, we're going on 2 years, the COVID pandemic. What's the one thing that it's taught you, the pandemic, Greg?
It's taught me the value of rest, the value of slowing down with intentionality.
Yeah.
It's taught me that I don't have to have a full calendar.
Yeah.
You know, and it's okay to be intentional about saying no. I've got family obligations.
Yeah.
And that's what I have on my itinerary for the day. And that's all.
That's good.
It definitely taught you how to be confident in pink.
Jeff Fauntleroy, what about you?
Well,
Shots fired.
It taught me how to have a plan A and a plan B. How to move on a swivel. And also, it taught me to be healthy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's
You're
it.
definitely healthy now.
DeMarcus.
It taught me to face me more. Because you was just around you and
Yes,
your
sir.
loved ones. So it taught me to learn more about myself.
Yeah.
It let me see a lot of my flaws. And then it also, I was able to see a lot of the folks that didn't let it stop them. They got up and they were still grinding. So it really taught me a lot about myself and even more pushing myself further because you got to have that plan A, that plan B, and
Absolutely.
that family time. So
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think for me, it's taught me that you have to surround yourself with people who matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good.
With people
Wow.
who really matter.
Yeah, man.
It's so much loss in the last couple of years. You think about the celebrities we lost. Michael K. Williams, who recently died. Hank Aaron,
Wow.
DMX, John Lewis, Betty Wright, old singer, John Thompson, old Georgetown coach. Just to name a few, and many people that we know personally that have experienced loss or even died. So I think you got to surround yourself with people who love you because we don't know when our last time
Absolutely.
walking
Sure.
into a building or walking
Absolutely.
somewhere.
Brother.
You
You're
just
right.
don't know. So I think we have to surround yourself with people who just love you and really genuinely care about you.
Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely.
You're right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, all right, are we ready for the conversation starter?
Well, let's go, man.
All right.
Let's go.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right.
Make me nervous.
So, with that, we're talking about loss and changes in the pandemic. How do you cope with loss? We talk about, all the celebrities we've lost and people that we know that have passed on. And loss is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
How do you cope with it? What do we, how do you cope with loss?
I honestly have yet to learn how to cope with loss. I've lost some significant people in my life, and all I've known to do is just push it down and keep going. So I've never had a strategy on dealing with loss because I think the emotions of it are just so heavy for me that, and I've never been taught how to deal with emotions to that degree. So the people that I've lost, my grandfather, my mother-in-law, I've just traditionally pushed it down, suppressed it down, found something to get into, lifting weights or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just kind of gone until I don't feel it anymore. And I know that's a bad thing.
Well,
but that's just how I've only
That's
dealt
how you
with it.
deal with
Yeah.
it.
Gotcha. Greg Kirkland?
For me, honestly, I've always had a different take on loss and a different take on grief. I've been in church all my life. I've been a church boy. And so, having to oftentimes be the person that's in ministry, like I've had to sing at I never get to go and sit at a funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always there to serve, always there
Yeah.
to sing, always there.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn how to grieve, but also accept the fact that there's one thing that's guaranteed in life, and that's death.
Yeah.
With that, though, the other part of it, though, during this pandemic that it has taught me is to be intentional about grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I feel that is because recently somebody passed, and I was talking with a friend of mine, and they made the statement that was so true. I hadn't thought about it. They said, with so much loss, with so much degree of loss in the last span of 2 years, it's easy now to become numb
Yeah.
at the news.
Yeah.
It's like we've become used to hearing that somebody's gone, hearing that somebody's lost. And so now it's like, oh, wow, man.
Yeah.
Dang, I hope it wasn't COVID.
Yeah.
That's the
yeah.
first statement that's made.
Yeah.
Man, hope it wasn't COVID. And then from there, it's like just another just another drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So I have made it a point that if someone passes, if it's a loved one or friend, that I actually take the time to grieve their loss. And it doesn't have to be falling out, you know what I'm saying? But it's enough to accept the fact that, okay, God,
There it is.
you've taken them home.
Yeah, there it
You know?
is. For me, it's acceptance.
Yeah.
It's acceptance that there's a loss.
Yeah.
And then there is the moving on, but not forgetting.
Right.
But we're talking about the loss of a person. But we've experienced a lot of other losses.
That's true.
For instance, there is that loss of what we are used to. Like I am a going out around people kind of person.
Sure.
And I lost that.
Wow.
And I really had to adapt to that loss.
Wow.
I was grieving
Wow.
that loss because I couldn't go out to the festivals. This year we were able to go to the Jazz Festival and House in the Park. But last year we couldn't do any of those things.
Wow.
So I'm stuck at home going crazy because I'm not a homebody person.
Absolutely.
So I was grieving that loss, but I had to
Wow.
learn how to accept the fact that
thought.
this is the time that we're in. There's nothing I can do about it.
Sure.
So I've got to move on and then run this race in a different way.
Absolutely.
So that's what I learned. And then the other thing is when we're dealing with loss, I'm in a position where I have to deal with so many, but I learned from my years of law enforcement that cases have no faces. I can't take it personal.
Wow. Wow.
So sometimes you call yourself cold,
Yeah.
but it's just the mere fact that you accept what it is and you got to move on.
have to do-
That doesn't mean that you don't remember the person.
Absolutely.
You always have them in your memory and in your heart,
Absolutely.
but you got to move on.
That's great.
What tools do you all use? What tools have you used with the losses if you experienced? Would you advise people to use? And what kind of tools can you to help you with that grieving process? Because you said it's not just the loss of people, but your normal.
Yeah,
Right.
That's a great. I mean, your children. You're used to getting the routine of getting up and get on a school bus and going to school, but for over a year that was not the case. So
Right.
what tools do you use to help cope with this new normal that we've been in?
Well, you got to accept what it is. I mean, my wife and I, we're empty nesters. I mean, we got dogs now. And all our lives, we were going to basketball practice. We were going to track practice. We were going to oratorical contests and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, you look up, and it's just you and your wife.
Wow.
And that's a loss. So now you got to accept the fact that life is not like this anymore.
Wow.
So we got to change. We got to
Sure,
shift.
sure.
So in all of those losses, there's a shift that has to take place. And it comes with acceptance first.
Wow.
And there's a grieving process.
Wow.
But when you accept it, you take ownership in what has taken place.
Absolutely.
It gives you, I think, the strength to move on. And you got to find your way.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I think that the great word that you used was shift. At the beginning of the pandemic, the big thing was now you have time to write the book. Yeah. Now you have time to, I mean, that was the beginning of the pandemic. It was like now that thing that you've been sitting on that God put in you, that was the beginning of the pandemic. And like I said, I think that as the pandemic has progressed, it has taught us to just learn the value of shifting and prioritizing.
Yeah.
I think that a tool that is necessary to use with loss, whether it's with the loss of a loved one, whether it's with the loss of a thing, a materialistic thing, or time, or a hobby, something like that, is shifting perspective but also prioritizing to see what can I do that gives me the gratification that I would once get from that, or what can I create for the loss of my loved one that would cause me to always keep them in my heart? How do I refocus my mind and my attention so that they're always with me? I have this particular thing right here that I do that lets me know my loved one is with me. That lets me know that I have, something.
Yeah, I mean, there's many times I call upon my ancestors. My uncles were great drivers, and they were strategic drivers. And I could always remember him saying, okay, I'm going to get in this lane right now because 3 cars up, it looks like he's going to make a move. And I'll call hey, Uncle Norman, man, I'm on the road, man, I need your help.
Wow.
And I feel him sitting with me.
Wow.
And we're talking about road tripping.
Wow.
I call upon my mom when I'm at a favorite restaurant. Hey, Mom, look, I think you're going to like this. So I invoke that spirit into the conversation, into the present. So I always keep them alive.
That's great. That's great.
I heard a doctor we recently got an opportunity to sit with, and he stated that when you lose something, it gives you an opportunity to reset. And I sat on that for a minute because he talked about, it allows a person, if you lose a loved one, it allows you to reset from traditions and things that once were the shift that you guys were talking about. But in a loss of anything, even when we talk about the pandemic, losing certain freedoms that we once had or being able to go out, it allowed everybody an opportunity to sit and reset focus, reset priorities, reset standards and values, even reset friendships and relationships. So I think that's one of the great lessons that when he said it hit like, man, it did give everybody an opportunity to just reset their entire life because you were away from people for a little over a year. So when you step back out, people didn't know what they were going to get. If you went in just lazy or just unmotivated, you coming out and you just motivated and you ready to take on the world, you went through some sort of reset period. So I think that was great.
Now there's some losses where you look back and say, whew, you know what? I'm just saying.
God did it.
I'm just saying.
God did it.
I'm not talking about people, but we lost some other stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of glad. I ain't going to go there.
But no, that's true. And I think one of the things, add on to what DeMarcus said, I think it does give you a chance to realize what's important. Some of the stuff that you focused on before just wasn't, because we do so much stuff out of habit. Out of tradition. We just do it because we do it. And when you think about it, it's just not necessary. And the other thing is that I've learned to do is to just be more productive because you don't know how much time you have. So, you can't just be so idle. So if this time hasn't given you the opportunity to do something, you've wasted a lot of time, whether it was write a book, read a book, take a trip, anything. It really gave you the time because, we've had this time to just kind of do nothing. Absolutely.
Sure.
All right. So again, the other thing is we've got to take advantage of mental health professionals, emotional health professionals.
Totally agree.
And with loss, because we are not all equipped to just handle that by ourselves.
Especially, and I'm so glad you said that because I was trying to think of what to say to speak to the fact that so many people have experienced loss suddenly. And so because of the sudden loss, there's a lack of closure. And so for those people, when you ask what are the tools, that we can use, I think that therapy is a great tool that it might take for those who lost their loved ones unexpectedly. It was just sudden. There's no way to prepare for something like that. And so for that reason, now they're struggling with, I lost my loved one. I wasn't able to be in the hospital with them. I wasn't able to, what I'm saying? I had to say goodbye through FaceTime. Things are just traumatic experiences.
The abnormalities of what takes place with the loss.
And so with that, I think that mental, health is so vital. And being able to sit with somebody and finding a therapist or somebody that just allow you to unpack that. And help you to possibly find the closure that you want.
We do more for our cars than we do for our mental health.
Wow.
we want to make sure that we get our cars in
Every
5,000
3,000
miles.
Absolutely.
To make sure we get an oil check.
Correct.
If the light comes on, we want to go and check it out.
Correct.
But we don't do anything. You can't wait until it breaks down.
Correct.
And then say, I need to talk to somebody.
Correct.
No, you need to talk to somebody
Absolutely.
so
Prevent
that
it.
you don't break down.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
therapy is good.
Absolutely.
Matter of fact, I
Absolutely.
saw a shirt, Therapy and Jesus. It's a good equation.
That's right.
Listen,
That's right.
love
That's
it.
right. And as we transfer out of this segment, I want to say to all of our audience out there watching, if you are struggling with emotional health and issues, do not suffer in silence. There are a lot of great professionals.
Please.
Your family members can be listening boards, but you sometimes need a licensed, qualified professional to talk to. Take advantage of any of those opportunities, because the most important thing is, we here at The Conversation, we want you to be well.
Yes.
Okay? We want you to be well. So again, great conversation
Yes, sir.
on that. Now, let's start the debate.
Oh, God.
All right?
Here we go.
Every week.
Let's talk about churches. We know in this country,
Buckle up.
there are hundreds of denominations.
Email him. Email Ron.
There are hundreds of denominations.
Yeah.
And that number grows all the time with people, different factions splitting from churches.
Okay.
So why is that? People are seemingly leaving formal Christianity and in churches in large numbers. Millennials, especially, are not feeling the desire to have formal church as church used to be. Let's talk about that. Why are people leaving the churches?
We've had the conversation with, I be working with that demographic, the youth, the young adults, the millennials. It's the traditional mindset that has been thrown out, right? So during the pandemic, to have access to so many different churches at one time gave people the opportunity to say, I don't have to necessarily just belong here. It eliminated the building as a whole. Like, everything has to be done in the church, in the building. And as a millennial, it's like, man, if I'm at home and I can talk to Jesus, find Jesus, et cetera, and I don't agree that is the only way. Mm-hmm. But it's that freedom of saying, I don't have to be in the four walls anymore to say that I have faith or I believe. So from a millennial standpoint, it's like, man, I don't got to be in that building no more.
Well, that's a little different. They're still involved in church, just not the building.
Leaving the actual.
Well, I mean, but leaving, they're leaving, leaving the faith.
Yeah.
Leaving the faith.
Yeah.
Leaving the faith.
Well,
that's
got
no,
you.
that's a
I
great
see what
point,
you're saying.
and I think the pandemic has even made that
got you.
even greater,
Assisted
because
that.
now
So-
you can be in your bedroom in the bed
For
watching,
sure. Now
but you're still a part of the church. But
We've
people are
discussed that.
leaving.
And
they're
it's-
leaving the
it's-
church.
It's ultimately been, it's ultimately been people either relying on somebody else's relationship. So we would have students who they only believed in God because of their mom and dad.
Okay.
Wow.
And that was their relationship with the Creator,
Gotcha.
right?
Wow.
Even for millennials, it was like, man, I only went to church because my mom made me go. I only believed in this faith because this is what I grew up in.
Right.
And I believe today most people are leaving because there was no real relationship established in let's just say the Christianity realm. I can't speak for other religions, but it was just like, man, you were riding the coattails of somebody else's relationship, that your relationship wasn't ever established in the first place. So when pandemic hit, you didn't know how to go to God, pray, fast, read, because that was never a standard or a structure for you.
Gotcha.
It was just, my mama did it, so I'm doing what she did.
Right.
Or in the building, we got praise and worship and all that going. Boom, that's the routine.
Gotcha.
Well, I don't think people are leaving the church universal. I think people are leaving dead spaces.
Well, the numbers say different.
Well, here's what I believe. I believe that if you're not talking about social justice issues, if you're not talking about prison reform, if you're not talking about economic development, if you're not talking about how can I get through college and what is the importance of education, if you're not telling me why I should be married, if you're not telling me why I shouldn't be gay, why I shouldn't do this, if you're not talking about these issues, hey, man, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I think that people are leaving the dead spaces, but they're gravitating towards folks who are telling them how I can be a better person.
But again, that's leaving one church over
Right,
another church.
right. He's saying leaving the
These
faith.
are people, for example, millennials are leaving between, the studies show millennials, they interviewed a group of millennials between 25, the age of 25 and 33. A lot of them left the church after 18.
Wow.
The age of 18, the church altogether, not a church, the
Church, period.
Well-
because of divisiveness in the church and the
Yeah.
traditions of the church.
That's what I mean.
And the judgment.
But are they leaving? Are they leaving? Are they leaving God?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily leaving
So-
God, but form
but the church.
organized church.
Okay, so that's what I mean. Folks are leaving those dead spaces,
Yeah.
and they're going to who's speaking that language that's helping them get better, and it may not be in the church. There's some folks
Yeah.
who are gathering in places that's not a traditional church,
Yeah.
but they're helping them get to God
Yeah.
in ways that help them become better people.
Yeah.
Greg?
I think that a lot of our grandparents and great grandparents couldn't read.
Okay.
And I think that the pastors of that generation,
Oh, yeah.
they might not have even been able to read either.
Yeah.
But the respect level that was for the pastor was, all right, pastor. If the pastor said it, that's the truth. And so they just believe it. And then they pass it down and they pass it down. And then our parents were products of that upbringing in that generation. Okay. And then our parents, allowed us to have a little more freedom and things of that sort. Okay. But now I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old daughter. Right? And the difference with them than our generation, our parents and things of that sort, is that we were always taught you don't question God.
Yep.
We were always taught that. Baby, you don't question God. You don't question God. You don't question God. This next generation got questions.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to ask them.
Yeah.
And they don't accept you don't question.
Absolutely.
They don't accept that.
I totally agree with
And
that.
they're
They don't
meeting at
accept it.
Starbucks,
Listen.
hearing about the word.
Listen, and they're looking on Google,
Yeah.
and they're asking each other,
Absolutely.
and they're finding the influencer that's on Instagram
Yeah.
that's not the preacher,
Yeah.
but that has good, what's the word? That they're good speakers, they're good
Yeah.
motivators, and they make them feel good. And so they starting to gravitate toward what makes them feel good
Right. Yeah.
versus what has been offered in the church.
Right.
Now, if we want to go a step further, we got into a place where pastors, oh my God, okay, email me.
Say it, Doc.
Yeah.
We got into a place where pastors became celebrities.
Yeah.
We got to a place where pastors became celebrities. And because the pastors became celebrities, we lost that
Authenticity almost.
that reverence.
Yeah.
That was once given to the pastor because the pastor became a celebrity.
A celebrity without a voice.
The pastors,
Authentic voice.
The pastors began rubbing elbows with other celebrities. You can't tell the difference between the rapper, the pastor, the athlete. You can't tell the difference. After a while, it became you can't tell the difference. Everybody's driving the same car, wearing the same suit, talking the same talk, walking the
In
same
that
walk.
standpoint,
I
They
debate
did.
I
that.
think
They
I think
did.
it's a good
And
thing
so,
though.
Yeah,
well,
I
but
debate
Not
that.
the car, not the car stuff.
No.
No,
But
I
rubbing
debate
the
that.
elbows- Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with it. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that to the next generation, it lessened the reverence for the pastor, which made them start to identify the pastor as being human. Hear me where I'm going with it. Okay? It started to make the pastor more human. Now, on one aspect, for the pastor, it made the pastor feel good that I'm not being placed on a pedestal, right? On the other aspect, many pastors, when you start to take into social media and all that kind of stuff, now the dirty laundry of the human pastor who has become the celebrity that's trying to keep up with other celebrities and be on a level playing field, they in the tabloids like the celebrities. Yeah. They in the gossip columns like the celebrities. They falling short like the celebrities. So, and hiding it and masking it under the umbrella of, I'm just a man, I'm just human. So take me as I am, take my flaws. Well, the next generation, new generation, this is all Greg's opinion. The next generation is like, why would I go there?
I see your point, but I think that, to your point, it should have been a gradual shift. For instance, hey, I don't see if my pastor's hanging out with Jay-Z and he's flying in a G4 and he's over in Santorini.
Yeah, come on, Doc.
And he's laying out on the beach, but at the same time, he's giving us a word that is relevant for our lives and those he is around. He's giving them a word, and they're around him for spiritual upliftment.
Exactly.
Then I'm good with that. I agree.
I don't think that is the reason that people I don't think that's a major reason that people. Sure, it would be for some, but I think there's a deeper. I think the judgment that people have in church. If you do this, you don't belong in this church. If you do this, I think that's what's driving people out of the church. Because if I go to church and I'm supposed to be, I come there for spiritual guidance and a loving environment, and I get the finger of you need to be doing this. Well, why would I continue to go? But that's not one particular location of a place. It's kind of in a traditional church sense. You go and churches point out flaws. Now, the good thing is I do think that churches are shifting.
Yeah, but Ron, to that point though, I think that what has happened is that our generation pulled away from the church because of judgment.
Absolutely.
But the generation behind us ain't worried about judgment. Because our generation pulled away from the church, in my opinion, for two reasons. One is because they didn't like the dogma of the church. They thought that the church was too judgmental. But then the flip side of it is they started seeing the pastor as being too common. The reason why I keep going back to that is because what happened is that, in my opinion, our generation that pulled away from the church for judgment and for reasons is now rearing a generation that's saying to them, you don't have to go to a church. You don't have to, and the new generation is not seeking God. They're not seeking the pastor. They're not running behind the pastor.
I disagree.
They're not running to the pastor.
There's so many different nuances with the young people that are going to churches. When you think about all the differences in people, the makeup of our younger people, what they're looking for, they don't fit the model of church membership.
Nah, man, we watered it down,
bro. What people in traditional church think is you come looking like this. That's still in some churches.
Yeah.
And
that's a dead space.
They don't resonate with that. You take me as I come with my cut up jeans.
And that's what I mean. Those are dead spaces.
Absolutely, you come in with that. So again, that will not send them reeling from a location. It will send you reeling from the faith, because you know what? I don't want to be a part of a faith that is that judgmental and damning to me.
So if the mindset,
we got to wrap up. We're getting close to time.
If the mindset
last word
is not on those social justice issues, if you're not talking about Black Lives Matter from the pulpit, if you're not talking about prison reform, because everybody got somebody in prison, if you're not talking about how to deal with it, if you're not talking about when they come out of prison, what we're going to do for them, how we're going to help them, how we're not going to call them ex-offenders, but we're going to call them citizens returning to the public.
All right. That's debatable. And again, folks, it happens every time we do this show. We run out of
We
time.
need 30 more. We need 30 more. I think we need to
Again,
make it an hour.
Great topics. Again, gentlemen, great show today.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate your insight. And again, those of you supporting us, watching us, we thank you so much for watching us. Tune in next time. It's going to be another great show with some interesting topics that we really normally don't talk about, but we'll be talking about it right here. So don't miss us on The Conversation. Take care.